We are live. All right, Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to the Tents of Israel, Children of Israel and Covenant Keepers. I'm your host, James Gillespie. As always, our co-host, Chris Jones and Ryan Knoll are with us tonight. They're in the background right now. I'm going to bring them in early tonight, and because I want to talk about what's going on here and with this Chinese spy balloon and this whole Hunter Biden story and all this kind of stuff. So we're going, me and Ryan. If you don't know, Chris probably ain't the political end of this. He
No.
works too much for that. But me and Ryan will kind of roll with that a little bit, and we want to talk about the Great Commission tonight. I mean, that's what we're shooting for. But I want to lead off with this story about this Russian balloon. So I'm gonna bring them in here real quick. Okay, now you can see them. Everybody, wave to the audience there, guys. That way everybody can see you. We are live 5x5. We are broadcasting live on YouTube. We finally got that figured out this week. It's been kind of troublesome the last couple weeks, but we're recording as well. So if you're not watching this live, you can watch it later on YouTube as well. Be sure to give us a like and a follow. That helps us out. With the old ministry, we lost probably 30 or 40,000 listeners. And now we're trying to rebuild that audience again. I think we're up to a whopping 60 or 70 subscribers now, which is awesome. We want to get back up to several thousand. That way we start moving up on the YouTube's algorithm. I've been thinking about maybe simulcasting this on our Rumble channel as well, and we may start doing that and try to get the listenership or the viewership up. We've been getting plenty of views. We just need to get more followers. So if you can help us with that, give us a follow, hit that bell. That way, when we do go live from now on, you'll get notified and you'll be able to watch us then. Okay, so I've just been listening to the news a little bit on the car radio. I hadn't really turned on a television in probably a few weeks, but I will listen to the news when I'm driving down the road. And so last night I was driving and I hear that this supposed Chinese weather balloon, 60,000 feet above the Earth, has breached our northern border through Canada. So it's been over Canada probably for a couple of weeks, and Canada didn't shoot it down, and they just let it go ahead and cross their country and come into the United States, crossing our northern border. And here's the thing that I find auspicious. So as soon as the story breaks, because some guy is standing out in the middle of his field, I believe in Wisconsin, and says, "Hey, that's not the moon. What is that floating up there? And why are all the airports shut down?" he figures out that something has breached our airspace, and the airport is closed. They're not allowing anything to fly, and so now they know they can't keep it a secret anymore. So they break this on the news that our airspace has been breached by a supposed Chinese weather balloon, spying balloon is what it is. Uh, and they're admitting that it is a spying balloon, so they're not trying to keep that. But what they're telling us is, oh, they took preventative measures, that whatever information they thought that they were going to get, they're not going to get, but they're not going to shoot it down. Okay, so originally when the story broke, the Pentagon came out and spoke about it and said that Joe Biden had given them the go ahead, told them, in fact, to shoot it down while it was over Wisconsin, so there wouldn't be much damage. Now that story is changing, like it always does to protect Joe Biden. That story has changed since its inception yesterday. But yesterday the story was that Joe Biden told them to shut it down, and they defiantly told him no. Okay, that should be the main story. Okay, the Pentagon told the commander in chief of the military to stand down. I don't know what country we're living in anymore, because the Pentagon does not tell the president of the United States anything. They advise him. They are advisors of him, but they do not instruct him. He is the commander in chief. They obey his orders, and if his order was to shoot the thing down while it was over Wisconsin or Minnesota, wherever it was, so it would minimize casualties, then yes, sir, we'll get right on that. That should have been the response. But the response was, let's just let it hang around and spy as it moves all the way across the United States. And now the thing's over in Ryan Knowles' neck of the woods, over in Missouri, floating around. They said it's on its way to Kentucky. And the story has changed today. The story is that the Pentagon advised the president that it would be best just to let it, since it would have a 20 square mile debris fallout, that it would be best just to let it stay up there, because we're blocking anything that it could do. This is craziness. I mean, it's absolute craziness that we're allowing this thing. I don't care if they've completely shut it down. It's craziness that over one of the most sparsely populated states in the United States, they're going to allow a spying balloon to remain in the air. I don't know. I honestly, I mean, it's like we've left the United States and moved into bizarro land. What say you, Mr. Ryan?
Well, my question is, why did they even allow it into our airspace?
Exactly. Why that thing should have been shot before it left Canada.
Do we not have measures in place to be on the lookout for these kind of attacks? If we can let a weather balloon in, what else are we going to let in?
We have battalions, without divulging any classified information. We have battalions of arsenal weapons surrounding our borders that a fly should not be able to penetrate our airspace if we didn't want it to. So that right there should tell you, why did they allow this thing to cross our border? Number one, because it could have been shot down in Canada when it was over nothing, literally over nothing, but a few hills. Looks like we lost Ryan there for a minute. But it could have been shot down. There, we got him back. It could have been shot down over Canada when it was just in the mountainous range there, and the debris wouldn't have even hit a cow. I mean, let alone destroyed maybe somebody's barn or something over Wisconsin, or I forget where it was. Do you remember where it was? Where it breached?
I think it originally entered in Montana.
Montana. You're exactly right. It was Montana, one of the most sparsely populated states in the United States. We could have shot it down over the mountains anywhere in Montana, and probably not even risk a cow, maybe a squirrel or two or something. But they chose not to do that for why? Which in my mind, I keep telling people, I mean, maybe this is going to be my new conspiracy because all my old conspiracies have now been proven to be facts. So my new conspiracy is this, and I'll just ask you men if it kind of rings true to you as I'm saying it. So the big story for the past 2 weeks has been Joe Biden and his obtaining classified information and basically having it strewn all over his personal home, so much so that it was left on the floor of his garage by his Corvette, while his drug addict son, had full range of the house, could go in and see whatever he wanted to see and do whatever he wanted to do. And his drug addict son is saying, hey, let's extort some money from China and Russia, but we got to give 10% to the big guy. So that's been the main story for the last 2 weeks. So a few days ago, before the Chinese weather balloon, the story breaks that Hunter Biden is actually going to try to fight this case, of his exposed laptop information now, in a more harsh way. He's basically going to claim material rights, and although the guy had the rights to the laptop, he didn't have the rights to the information. So they're going to try to sue anybody who's been disseminating that information off of that laptop. But then that blows up in their face as well, and they come back the next morning and go, "Oh, well, we're not saying it was Hunter's laptop," because now they know they've opened themselves up to discovery. So they're gonna back off that and say, "Well, we weren't really saying it was Hunter's laptop. We're just saying if it was." So both of that story didn't take the fallout off of Joe Biden, because during this, the FBI goes down to his vacation home after giving him almost 2 months to clear out any classified information there. He was just there for a couple weeks ago, and the FBI is giving him a heads up. Hey, in a couple weeks, we're going to go investigate your vacation home, so get everything out of there. So the FBI goes in there, and then almost when they walk out the door, go, "Hey, media, nothing to see here." I mean, covering for this guy left and right, and then it's just, these things are not done. They're not heard of. They're not done. Donald Trump, goes to a fundraiser, and the FBI raids his personal home in the middle of the night, guns drawn, won't let his attorneys see anything, won't let them see what they're going through. Nothing. But Joe Biden, who wasn't even president, he was a senator when he got these classified documents. Supposedly, these documents are strewn all over Biden, or college, and then strewn all over his personal home. And now, when they come out of his vacation home, they say, "Well, we did find some notebooks, but we didn't find anything that was actually marked classified." So what he had done is he had taken all the classified information, burned it, got rid of it, because the news reported that there was a fire in the fireplace while Joe Biden and his family was there on vacation a couple weeks ago. The media reported that. This isn't my story. This is the media story. So there was a fire in the fireplace. So any documents that were there, I am 100% positive that were stamped, got thrown into that fireplace. Now, we have forensic that could go through the fireplace and figure all that out, but they won't do that because it's Joe Biden. But they did come out with some notebooks where he had transferred the information off of those classified documents into the notebooks. If all of this stuff comes out, we are looking at Watergate ain't a drop in the bucket compared to what this guy's doing.
It would be Watergate on steroids. But this just rolls with the same narrative that we've been accustomed to. The CCP has infiltrated our government to the point where they pull all the strings. And why would our military even allow this thing into our airspace? It's just the fact that the CCP has so much control that they're allowing it. And it's just mind blowing what they're getting away with. But now they're putting it right in front of our faces. It's just unheard of. And my question is on the classified documents. Biden is supposedly the president. Well, at any point in time, a sitting president can declassify any documents that he wants to, and he hasn't done that. And to me, that makes no sense whatsoever. So there's things here that just make you think, what is really going on? I mean, to me, it's definitely a smokescreen. We're looking up when somebody is doing something, to the left or to the right. But they've definitely got the public's attention. Every news media is covering this, and usually that doesn't happen. So there's something to this, and I guess it's maybe hopefully it's getting close to unraveling, but it's a mystery to me.
Well, I mean, the Pentagon disobeys an order, a lawful order from the supposed commander in chief. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
That commander in chief, who has full declassification abilities, could declassify every document that was in his home, so therefore making it not classified anymore. He hasn't done that, or can't do that for some reason. I mean, if you believe all the conspiracy stuff out there, which I tell people all the time, if 10%, if just 10% of the conspiracy stuff that's out there right now is true, most Americans' minds will not handle that. They can't. They rely too much on the government. They think that most people that go to government are good people. What they don't realize is probably on day 3, a good man. I tell people politics is like heroin. Okay, heroin will make a good man a thief and a good woman a whore. Politics will make a good man a corrupt man. And the way they do that is you go out to some fundraiser, get a little tipsy that night, somebody puts something in your drink, and then when you show back up to your hotel room, they got some underage kid laying in your bed, and they take a bunch of pictures of that. Now they got you. They own you. So now you have to do whatever they say, because I know some of these men, and I knew them before they went to Washington, and now I know them after they went to Washington. Nobody I have ever known who's went to Washington is now the same. Why? Their politics have changed. Oh, we've got to go along to get along. Well, you do, because they got you trapped up into something. They've got you over a barrel, and rather than, I mean, some of them will just say, okay, I'm just going to leave office. I'm not. You're not gonna own me. So some of those people, they just leave office. They won't try to get reelected. But the ones who keep fighting to stay in office and do that, or they really own them and making them stay there because they really own them. There's just too much of this stuff going on. Why is here's my question to both of you guys. So we know if you're watching the background news, not what they're trying to let you see, but the stuff that they're trying to let you not see, and you're seeing all of these children being found in caves and tunnels and all this stuff being rescued almost daily, why is that not front page, wall-to-wall coverage on every news media station in the world? That we're finding all these children who have been abducted and rescuing them. When's the last time you heard anything about it?
Nothing.
Very rarely. You have to dig deep to find.
But almost daily, we're finding these dens where they're rescuing 10, 100, 200, 300 children, where they've been, hid away or locked in these sex traffic places, but that doesn't make the news. Something is rotten in Denmark, is what the poet would say. So when we think about that, we think about everything that's going on politically, everything that we see this corrupt government doing. Talking about that balloon, I think back just a couple years ago when Donald Trump was in office, and I think about Syria just saying they were going to gas people, and we shoot missiles in there, blowing up every place that they possibly thought that they could have gas. Okay, we ISIS tries to pull something off there in Afghanistan, we drop a Moab, the mother of all bombs. I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe if Donald Trump was still in office, that as soon as that weather balloon entered our airspace where we wouldn't cause an international incident, we would have not only blown that spy balloon up, but we would have tracked that thing from where it was launched and blown that place up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we allowing this to happen?
Going back to your point about the sex trafficking ring arrests, last week, here's an article right here in San Antonio, youth pastor, coach among 46 arrested in Texas on a sex trafficking sting. That was 46 in San Antonio. And then there's another arrest in Dallas, North Texas. Another 40 was arrested in North Dallas. So, we really ought to be looking into these things. And I mean, to me, there is a battle between good and evil.
There is.
And I think the good, we're not seeing the good. We're seeing the evil, but we're not seeing this. We're not seeing this being taken place. Here's hundreds of arrests in California. This was February 6th.
Yeah. Last year.
518 arrests in California. So, who's doing that? Who's making these arrests? Who's pulling those strings to make this happen?
I think in the media.
Why is it not? No, I mean, why is it not on mainstream? These are local newses that have to pick it up because these big sting operations, a lot of people see them, and who they're not, the main medias are not picking these up. They're not picking these up at all. And there's good guys behind the scenes that are closing in on this sex trafficking. And I can pretty much assure you it's not Joe Biden's administration doing it.
No. Well, I know, last week we talked a little bit, and I said that Chris works at a youth correction center as a probation officer there, and he's probably seen the worst of the worst as far as our youth in this world right now. And to think that these kids, a lot of them are acting out because somebody has done something terribly wrong to them in their life.
Mm-hmm.
What generation are we raising now? I mean, if you had 500 people arrested for sex trafficking, how many children were rescued from those 500 people? I mean, last year or year before last, I kind of kept track of that a little bit better. Every little news article I could find on it. And there were times that we would rescue 300, 500, 600 children from one sex trafficker where they had been abducted and taken across the border. taken out on some ship in the middle of international waters. Supposedly, right now, off of the United States border, just inside international waters, there's supposedly a sex trade ship there that they're making all this child pornography and all this stuff on this ship and then shipping it back to the United States.
Hmm.
If we know this stuff is going on, why? Why in the world would we sit by and allow this stuff to happen? Now, I don't know that that's true. It's a story that I read somewhere. I don't know that I don't know that it was ever validated. But when we start seeing legitimate news stories about 200, 300, 600 children being rescued, it makes me think there may be some validity to those kind of stories. And when I hear some stories about some youth that have been on the streets and how this person got a hold of them or that person got a hold of them and pimped them out or sold them for drugs or whatever, I couldn't do what Chris does. I couldn't. Because one way you have to be really tough with those kids, and then on the other hand, you have to be really sympathetic with them because you don't know what they've been through. You don't know what brought them to that part of their life. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it's craziness that we live in a world where, back to our message topic, where we're not going out and making disciples of all men. We've failed. We've let down that standard. And I'm not saying one person can do that, but the only place that we're really going out and talking anymore is in the church. And I mean, I call it preaching to the choir, and that's where we spend probably 90% of our ministry is preaching to the choir, trying to keep the saved. I, when are we going to start fulfilling the Great Commission?
Before we get off the sex trafficking thing, I'd just like to add a few things to the
Sure.
parents who are out there watching. We do think in sex trafficking as they're going to take your children, they're never going to see them again. They're going to be off in, some other obscure country or down in Mexico or something like that. But the norm, it really seems to be, is that children are being sex trafficked right out of their house, right underneath their parents' noses, and they're still staying there. So, I mean, it's really a good business model for these pimps that they don't have to feed them, they don't have to house them, and they don't even have to clothe them. So they basically brainwash these young men and young women, and children too. Now, don't get me
Absolutely.
wrong. But I'm looking at the demographic between, 12 and 17, even 10 is what I deal with. So, and the mindset, this worldly mindset coming in that they've over sexualized their children, that they're so inundated with pornography throughout the day, and even on regular television with women in their bras and panties, or men with just their underwear on, and same sex marriage, homosexual, different pills that you can take if you have your high risk sex and all this stuff. I've heard about these things. I don't watch television, so I'm just going off of what some other people are saying. Is that they don't even realize what they're doing half the time. They're on all these social media platforms, and we know that the predators are just rampant upon those things. It's good business. So just as far as the sex trafficking goes, parents beware. You better, I say, don't let them on social media. If they are, make sure you are monitoring it with the best microscope you can, because they're good. Those people are tricky, and they're good, and they're able to brainwash and get them hooked on drugs, and they can really get your children. Another thing, you talked about those boats that are off the coast. I mean, we do have the Super Bowl right around the corner. I do believe, I think it's this week, or I don't even know when it is. I know they're about to play it, but they say that the Super Bowl events have a massive influx of children that they bring in for all the high profile people that come to these NFL games and things like that. So I don't even know where it's being played this year. Do you guys? What city?
I don't.
If you are in that city, beware. They're coming for your children.
Well,
So, I mean, it's facts. So, and just to play off one thing, I mean, yeah, these children that I see that are are being taken into this sex trafficking, and most of the time it is they come from homes that they're not probably targeting the families that are tight knit, that they communicate with your children, but the ones that are kind of broken up and struggling.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming to get that low hanging fruit. Not that they won't come after our children and our demographics, but just beware. It's and it is the children are just children. You say, I mean, there's some that are some pretty wicked individuals I come across, but for the most part, they're just damaged, and they just need healing. And that's where the Great Commission of the Gospel comes in a part, because it's only a small window that we're with them, at the center that I work at, but at least seeds can be sown that they can be watered and grown later. So, yeah.
Well,
that's good. I was going to say this. I don't know a lot about this organization. I've heard about it, and I just pulled up their webpage. But Operation Underground Railroad. I think they're a group of men, retired military, and that's their ministry. I guess they go underground and they retrieve children from these traffic areas. And if a person wants to research it, Operation Underground Railroad, I think it's a good organization. You can learn a little bit about what's actually taking place in the streets and behind the scenes. But I think that's a pretty good group of guys of what they're trying to do and what they accomplish. I think that they're pretty successful, on retrieving some of these kids that go missing.
Well, that's a thing. I want to kind of go back to what Chris said there about the social media thing. Here's the thing, and I know somebody's probably going to watch this and think that I'm a big ogre, but as long as I'm paying a cell phone bill, there is no privacy. That phone belongs to me. I'm going to read every text that comes on that thing. I'm going to look at your search history. I'm going to look at everything you can possibly do on that phone. I'm paying that bill. You living in my house, you're eating my food. I'm paying for the electricity. I'm paying for the heat. So don't tell me you have a right to privacy when I'm footing the bill. Now, in fact, I have my daughter. She's 14 years old. And she doesn't even complain about it because she knows that I'm doing it to protect her. But literally every text, every snap, every message that comes to her phone is routed to my phone as well. So I don't meddle in it. I don't talk back to her friends, but I know everything they're saying. I know everything she's replying to them. I know everything they're saying to her. So if you're not diligent, I don't care. Call me a helicopter dad. Great. You're not going to see my daughter being pimped out by some guy who was able to trick her into going down to the 7-Eleven or the Casey's to meet her one afternoon. It's just not. I'm going to get those messages. I'm going to know, is this one of her? If it's one of Chris's daughters or Ryan's boys, and they're chatting or something like that, I'll glance at it, but I don't really want to meddle in their conversation. But if I see something that I think looks a little off color, maybe I could call that parent and go, hey, I don't really appreciate it. And I had to do that with one family after Sukkot. Had to call them and say, hey, we don't talk like that in our house, and if that's the conversation that you allow your children to have in your house, I would prefer your children not communicate with my children. And I'm sorry that hurt their feelings, but here's the thing: if corrupt communication is allowed, it will begin to corrupt morals, and it will begin to corrupt your children to the point that they don't think they have to be obedient to mom and dad. It makes them. I mean, there's a natural course for children when they hit that 14 to 18 mark. You can guarantee that they're going to start fighting with you and kicking back a little bit, and because it's a natural thing. I call it the de-nesting stage. It's that stage when the mama bird would be kicking that baby bird out of the nest trying to teach it to fly. mainly because they're getting in that adolescent stage where you don't want them around anymore because they're getting so mouthy. but but these children, we have to raise them with love. We have to protect them even more so in this world, in the world we live in. If they live in your home, no, there's no right to privacy in my home. Uh, unless you're changing your clothes, um, you don't need to have your door shut and locked. I mean, that's just, this. That's the way it has to be. Anything that you're doing that you have to stay behind a locked door when you're around your family, you probably don't need to be doing that. So that's just my rules. And other parents, I think that you would probably be wise. And I'm not saying control your children to where they don't have a mind of their own. That's not what I'm saying here. But I'm saying be very aware that there is a real enemy out there trying to destroy you. And if he can destroy you through your children, he'll use whatever tool he wants to use. Okay? So don't allow him to do that through your children. Any more thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, there's organizations that come out and say they're dedicated to destroying our children. They're dedicated to coming after your children and leading them astray from righteous principles. I mean, they've even made songs about it. I can't remember exactly what the one particular group I'm thinking of right now, but it's one I'm out of California. I don't even want to say their motto because it's so crude. Man, I'll have to get back with y'all later on that one. I can't remember, but I mean, they're legitimately coming after, satanically inspired. You know, we talked about it, I think, before on some of the podcasts that, hey, if our enemy can destroy the family unit, then he can start just totally disintegrating the society and even the kingdom of the Most High. Because, I mean, the family unit is where we begin when we come in to continue to further the kingdom and become united in the body of Messiah. So, because when we have troubles at home, I mean, we know if we're having troubles with our wife, our prayers as the husbands are hindered. So when we have trouble with the children, then we have trouble with the wife, and when we have trouble with the wife, now we are hindered spiritually. So, I mean, it's a pretty sneaky little plan that our adversary has for us.
I'm going to play a little video here because we're talking about that and how these organizations are trying to destroy our children, even when they're at school. Donald Trump came out with a new video this week. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear it, but I'm going to switch over to that screen so the people that are watching this video can watch it. When you were talking about that, it made me think of this video that got sent to me this week.
Okay.
And this is one of Donald Trump's, platform things. He says literally in this video, he says it's going to be one of the first things he does when he comes into office, and it's talking about our children and what he's going to do with them. So I'm going to play that video real quick. Y'all can tell me after it's done whether you heard it or not. If you did, we'll comment on it. If not, I might say a thing or two and then we'll move on. Okay, I'm going to play it now.
And to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly. I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare and will be terminated from the program immediately. Furthermore, I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children. The Department of
All right. So let me go back to the screen with you guys. All right. So I don't. Did you one of y'all hear any of that?
I couldn't hear it.
Okay.
No.
So basically, I'll just kind of give you an overview of it, and then you can comment on it. But it was Donald Trump speaking, and he's talking about this gender reassignment thing that's being pushed in school. You know, you send your kindergartner to public school now, and one day he shows up and thinks, today I'm going to be a cat. So the teacher then promulgates this thought that, oh no, you really are a cat. And then the next thing you know, this child's 13 years old, and he finds out that there's a legitimate sect of people who call themselves furries, and they believe also believe that they're cats. So now you have to put litter boxes in the bathrooms at your school because these people believe that they're cats. So, but what's going on here is these teachers that we are paying with our tax dollars are affirming that if your child, wants to play with dolls that day, and it's a boy, well, maybe you're really a girl, and you just got born with male genitalia. So they start feeding this thought process into your child's mind as little as preschool and kindergarten, until this thought grows and grows and grows until they're bringing this home, telling mom and dad, well, I'm really a girl. I'm just trapped in a guy's body, or I'm really a boy and I'm trapped in a girl's body, because they're tomboyish and they like to fight and wrestle with the boys. This is the craziest thing that we're allowing to happen to our children. But Donald Trump's talking about this, and he's saying if they're doing this in school, and it's found out, that he's going to set up an agency where you can go and hold these teachers and these administrators in these schools, you can hold them accountable. You can go back and sue them for messing up your child's mind. Anybody who is giving this chemical castration, this chemical stuff to change one's sexual identity into male or female, they're going to be no more federal funds for them. Any doctor who suggests it, they're not going to be allowed to participate in Medicare and the biggest medical program in the world. So he's going to defund all of it. And any doctor that has done one of these reassignment surgeries, if the person decides, oh no, my mind was messed up and I shouldn't have had that surgery done, now that person can go back and sue that doctor who did their reassignment surgery and take everything that he owns. So he's trying to make it so we're not doing this stuff to our children anymore. And if I knew, I hear these people say all the time, well, I don't vote. Okay, well, if you don't want to vote, you have your reasons for that, don't vote. Okay, that's between you and the Father. But this is one of the reasons that I do vote, because there might be 1,000 things that I don't like against him, but I do like that he wanted to stop abortion. I do like that he wanted that, and because of his Supreme Court justice appointees, the abortion law was repealed. Nobody thought that was possible. Okay, but it happened because of him. Okay, now he says that he's going to do away with all this wokeness, this trying to make our boys into girls. Even true homosexuals are against this. They're seeing the damage that it's doing in their community. They call it grooming. I mean, they don't want you grooming these children. I mean, they're just as much against it as anybody else. So Donald Trump's saying on day one that he's going to defund all of these organizations. If I knew nothing else about him, if that's one of his agenda things, the same way abortion was, and he gets that done, I'll live through another 4 years of his smart mouth and his arrogant attitude.
Yes, exactly. I agree.
And anything else? It's just I get so sad when I see one of these little kids being a little boy dressed up like a little girl. They ain't 12 years old. They don't know anything about sex, but they're going to tell you that they're a different sex and they're attracted to a different. This is craziness. This is absolute. It is a spirit of wickedness that has come over our nation, that is calling good
Mhm.
evil and evil good. It's trying to destroy our children. I know, being transparent. One of the biggest arguments me and my oldest daughter ever had while she was living in my home is because she went to public school here in Stillwell, Oklahoma, and the teachers there convinced her that if you spoke out against homosexuality, that you were a homophobe and a bigot. So, in her mind, being a homo was the same thing as being a Muslim or anything else. If you want to hate a Jew because they're a Jew, that's the same thing as hating a homosexual because they're homosexual. So she kept trying to talk about that kind of stuff in front of my other children. And one day I told her, look, as long as you're living in my house, we're not going to have that conversation anymore. And it became pretty heated at that point. And I mean, was one of the few arguments that we ever had, but it was a major one in our house. And it was because of what public school. And the crazy thing is we live in a small town where the teachers, or you think you do. Most of them go to the same church you do, or the church across the street from the one you go to. And this is what they're teaching your children. So, what recourse do we have? I just read a statistic yesterday that said for the first time in United States history, that the Black community is homeschooling their children at a higher rate than ever in known history. So that includes during Salma, the race riots and all that kind of stuff, when they were keeping their children home for segregation. The Black community is actually homeschooling their children at a higher rate than even then. So that's the damage. That's the damage that public school is doing to our children. It is teaching Black children they're not as good as white children. It's teaching white children that you need to be guilty for something that you had no clue ever even happened and wouldn't know that even happened, except some teacher telling you that you need to be guilty for something that happened 200 years ago. Where are we going to go in as a nation if we allow our youth to be corrupted? Because Chris, Ryan, we're old. I know we hate to hear it, but we're becoming old guys. Okay. And if we don't protect this next generation, who is going to lead us? I mean, because when I look around, I honestly, I mean, every once in a while I get a glimmer. If you look at the Republican Party and some of the conventions, you see a lot of youth there now. So every once in a while I get a little glimmer of hope, but when I look at society as a whole, I don't get it. I don't see where that next generation of leadership is coming from and how we survive as a nation.
Well, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier. The family unit, for the most part, has failed our children. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not. I like animals, but I don't love animals. And I've been around. I've been to a lot of different states, and I'm an adjuster, and I go in a lot of people's houses. And I first thought, these kids that think they're fur babies, they're getting that from home, and it's coming from the parents who have 6, 8, 10, 12 cats living inside a house.
Goodness.
And those parents probably put more emphasis and care and love into those cats than they do their own children. And a lot of those houses are just, they're nasty and disgusting. And I think a lot of that's where it comes from. That's where this originates from. And I was in Walmart with the kids the other day, and there was a couple and her child, and I walked by them and they literally smelled like a cat litter box.
Oh my goodness.
And you know, I love people in Arkansas and I love people in Oklahoma, but to me, we've got a problem. There is a problem. And these kids go to school and they're like, well, you know, I live with cats, I live with dogs. Why don't I just associate with them? I mean, there's a spirit there that I that you know people need to realize. You know, these animals that we live with, you know, they're animals. I mean, they're not kids.
Exactly.
You know, they're not supposed to be on the same level as our children. You know, we're not supposed to take care of them like we do our children.
No.
I mean, our children are a gift, and we've been given that gift, and we've got to, you know, be a steward over them. You know, just like you guys are talking about, and it's sad. It's a sad situation that we're in, and then you know the leadership in these schools, you know, are not all of them, but a lot of them are left run, and they put up with it. You know, they embellish it. They recognize it, and they are not going to buck the system and do anything about these children. And you know, it's just it's horrible in my mind. I mean, that's how I see it. But like I said, I'm not anti-animal or anti-dog, anti-cat. I mean, I love them, but I think we're putting them on a higher pedestal, and our children are paying the price for it.
Well, animals should serve some sort of purpose. I
go.
mean, dogs should guard, cats should take out the mice and the rats. Our cattle, our sheep, our goats, they should supply milk. They should supply meat. I mean, okay, yeah, you might have one of your guard dogs that is friendly with your family, and that's fine. But I agree, man. Animals have been put on the pedestal. PETA has too much power, and now it's just the whole vegan mentality, or let's just call it a brainwashing that's taking place over this entire world, or this country at least. Kind of starts getting to me, and then taking it to the point of, like you said, they're allowed to have litter boxes in the classroom, and they want to identify as some sort of unclean animal at that. You know, it's it is troubling.
It is troubling.
But I'm going to say, like you said, you might see some of these, I've seen people that, they'll be mean to their children. They'll browbeat them. They'll talk down to them. They won't discipline them properly. Spank them wrongly, because I'm definitely for, as James always say, spank them today so you don't have to stone them tomorrow. Rings true. But then if someone's mean to an animal, even just to a fraction, like just say they discipline their dog, they lose their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how could you ever do that to a dog? Or or they'll pass by 500 homeless people that legitimately need help and never think twice but pick up a stray dog. I mean, it just kind of blows my mind. But we definitely have a broken mentality out there as far as the animals go.
Well, we have a heart problem. That's kind of the theme of tonight. This Great Commission.
Yeah, pull it back around.
We just have a heart problem. Before we move off that, I think every young man needs to spend a summer or two on a farm, bucking hay, castrating cows, milking cows, slopping hogs, whatever it is that you need to do to help that farm survive. And then you start understanding the value of an animal. Okay. Animals are here for a reason. They're not here to replace your husband, your wife, or your child. And that's what we're allowing to take place with a lot of these animals. We're using them as emotional support when we should be seeking that out in another human, or in Yahweh.
Yeah, there you go.
I raised dogs for many years. We've got out of the dog selling business, but as a breeder and a groomer, if you have to cull a litter of pups because they didn't turn out right, I mean, PETA, if they saw somebody having to do that, their brains would explode. But you're gonna sell a dog to somebody that you know is gonna bite them or bite their children? No, of course, if you're any kind of reputable breeder, there's no way you would ever allow that dog to leave your property where it could harm someone. This is what the Torah teaches us. If we have a cow that is known to push and it damages somebody or it kills somebody, we're responsible for that. So how much more so with a vicious animal? So I mean, Yahweh teaches us how to take care of our animals. I mean, we're supposed to make sure they're fed, they're happy. We're not supposed to abuse them. I mean, and anybody who's legitimately abusing their animals and that type of thing, yeah, they probably don't need to own animals. But those of us who have made a living raising, providing food, we gather eggs every Sunday for a friend of ours out of a chicken house, and literally thousands upon thousands of eggs, and take care of chickens on the weekends for our friends. We're talking 20,000-30,000 birds. So most people don't get the concept that those eggs that you buy at the store, they come from some farmer's farm. That beef that you just ate for dinner tonight, that was a cow a few weeks ago. That never registers in people's minds because they have been so far removed from where food comes from. And that's why America is probably one of the sickest countries in the world, because we allow GMOs, we allow all this garbage to be put in literally everything we eat. Additives, preservatives, Monsanto sprayed on the crops. I mean, I'm not going to give a big teaching about food, but even those who are trying to eat healthy cannot do so because we're feeding garbage to the animals that we're killing and eating. So unless you raise and feed that thing yourself, you don't know what it ate, what it was raised on. I mean, so you're eating Monsanto even though you think you're getting grass-fed beef. It's just, that's the world we live in here in the United States right now. I know people from Europe that come over from Europe. They're normally thin when they get here, and within first few years that they're here, they start ballooning up, putting on weight, and they can't get it off. And they're like, "What in the world is going on? Why am I gaining all this weight?" I mean, we had a guy at the synagogue, from Holland a year or so ago, and when he was in Holland, he was a rough, tough, muscled up guy. Comes to the United States in a year and a half, he's getting kind of portly, and he don't understand it. He's not eating any more than he ate in Holland, but now he's getting portly. It's because of what they're doing to our food. So I know we're rabbit trailing everywhere here tonight, but here we go. It's just the absolute destruction from our government to our family, to our children, to our personal self through our food. The enemy is literally just trying to destroy us at every front, and we are sitting here idly by preaching to the choir. We're sitting here telling each other, "Oh yeah, that's bad stuff in your food," because every time we go out on the street and we start to try and tell people, "Hey, they're killing you. They're spraying chemicals on your food." "Oh, you conspiracy theorists! I mean, the government wouldn't be trying to kill you." As a Jew, I'm gonna tell you, that was why the majority of Jews died in the Holocaust, is because we had the leaders of our community telling us that Russia or that Germany would never kill us because they needed us as workers. Okay? You don't understand that these elite people want to depopulate the earth. There is an agenda to depopulate the earth because they have been convinced that the earth does not have enough resources to sustain population at its current growth. So yes, they are trying to kill you. That is why we are at this place where God rebuked us, and he said, "Whoa," when they call evil good and good evil. That's where we're at. And if we aren't obeying the Great Commission, if we're not going out into the highways and the byways and compelling people to come in to begin to learn the Torah, to begin to learn about Yahweh and what he's doing. I think that was Matthew chapter 28, the last part of the chapter there. You want to read that, Chris?
Matthew 28?
28:11, I think, is where 28:16 is where it begins, the Great Commission.
Or 20? Oh, okay. Yeah. 28. You want me to go from 11? We'll go to 18.
Yeah, 16 on, I think.
Okay, 16 on. Got it. And the 11 disciples went away into Galilee to the mountain which Yeshua, commonly known as Jesus, had appointed for them. And when they saw him, they bowed to him, but some doubted. And Yeshua came up and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in the heaven and on the earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, immersing them or baptizing them in the name that mine says in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but we can probably get on that teaching later. Teaching them to guard or shamar or keep all that I have commanded you, and see, I am with you always until the end of the age. Amen.
Now, I'm gonna do a little messianic message off of that.
Yeah, you might as well.
For just a minute, okay? Because they're in verse 20. We kind of skip over that a little bit, but you have to realize Yeshua has already been crucified. He's already risen from the grave. This is probably at the end of the 40 days that he has remained with us after he's risen from the grave. So, and even after all of that, he makes this statement. Okay, now the Christian church will tell you that the law's been done away with, and you don't have to keep the commandments anymore. After Yeshua said it is finished on the cross, the law had been nailed to the cross at that point. But then why, 40 days later, after he's risen from the dead, does he make this statement? Teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I commanded you. Okay. My Bible, I don't know what yours reads like, but mine says that God is not a man that he could lie, and that he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He changes not. Okay? So, it also says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. When we see Abraham going up on the mountain to sacrifice Isaac, Isaac says, Dad, I got the wood and I got the fire, but where's the sacrifice? Abraham declares to Isaac, he said, For Yahweh will provide himself a sacrifice. He will provide himself as a sacrifice. Okay? So Yeshua became that sacrifice, that we could be reconciled to the Messiah. So it is he that has been John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Around verse 14, and the Word was made flesh to dwell among men. So he literally is the Word, and he's sitting here saying, after he's risen from the grave, to teach all of those people that we have now gone out and made disciples of, and that we have baptized. Now we've made disciples. This is the Great Commission. We're going out. We're making disciples of them. We're baptizing them. And then we're supposed to teach them to observe everything that he commanded. You think that
from Genesis to Revelation?
From Genesis 1:1 to Revelations 22 and 21. Yes. The whole book, not parts of it, not the parts that we want to pick and choose. That's what your local pastor does on Sunday morning. He'll get up behind the pulpit and tell you, hey, that law's been done away with. Nobody can keep that law. Anybody that says that they can keep the law, they're a liar, and the truth's not in them. And all liars have their part in the lake of fire. Hey, but don't forget to pay your tithes. Show me tithes in the New Testament. It doesn't exist. You're getting that from the law. So they want to teach the law when it suits them, when it fills their coffers, when it puts money in their pocket. They want to, and tell them, where does incest? Where's the incest talked about in the New Testament? It's not. That's in the law. Where's the Sabbath mentioned in the New Testament? It's not. That's in the. Well, it actually is, we can go into that to another time. But to the degree that we observe the Sabbath, it's not really discussed. When we start understanding everything that he commanded, we are still accountable for today. Then we'll start understanding that Yahweh is speaking to us right here. We have gone out. We are making disciples of all the nations. That's our job. That's what he commanded us to do right before he ascends back up into the heavens. He says, go out, making disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's what our English version reads. Okay, we can talk about the oneness of God, the Trinitarianness of God. That's a different message. So we'll leave that one alone for tonight. But understand, the Great Commission is 3 parts. We're to make disciples of them. Okay, does anybody even know do you know what a disciple is?
Yes, you're asking me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a disciple or a Talmudim, one who follows the teachings of Yeshua, not only just believes upon him, but go like with what John, he says, if you love me, you keep my commandments.
You do
so
something.
One who isn't taught, yeah, you do something. I mean, that's why I have a little written down here. It's good to be a believer, but if we want to be his disciples, then we need to obey his commandments. I mean, even the devils believe and they shudder, right? So if we're not obedient unto a faith, then how is that even salvific? You know what I mean? A faith that actually has works, like James says.
Yeah, absolutely. So that disciples, I know Ryan and Chris personally, so I can be a witness for them that they are both disciples of Yeshua. They are both trying to do what this Great Commission is telling us, going out into the highways and the byways and making disciples of the nations and compelling people to come into the faith. Okay, compelling people to keep the Torah, compelling people to keep Shabbat, to become Shomer Shabbat, to be observant of the mitzvah, the commandments. Okay, so that's what makes us a disciple, is when we become obedient and do. He said, "Blessed are those who what?
Do.
Blessed are those who keep my commandments and do my judgments." Okay, so when we're keeping his commandments, that's doing something. When we're executing his judgments, that's doing something. So to the person who says, "Oh, all you have to do is say this little prayer, Father, I believe that Jesus Christ was your son. Please forgive me of all my sins," and you get this magic get out of hell ticket rubber stamped on your life, and you just go out and continue to live the way you've always lived before, that's a lie. That's what the devil would tell you. You haven't become a disciple of anybody except Satan. Satan has deluded you in your mind to think that you can serve God by the devil's standards. How can you serve God by the devil's standards? It's impossible. You serve God by God's standards, and God's standards said, if you love me, just if you think you might, if you love me, keep my commandments. Okay? So if you say you believe in him and you don't love him, then you don't really believe in him. Okay? And if you do love him, then you're keeping his commandments. So Matt, I'm going to jump over here to Matt. I mean, we can read it together, or I'll just quote it. So it says, "Many will say unto me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? Have we not cast out demons in your name? Have we not done great and mighty works in your name? And then I will profess unto them, depart from me, you workers of iniquity, I never knew you." So this is, I want you to think. You got to think. Most pastors don't want you to think. They just want you to do what they tell you to do. But I want you to think for yourself, because this is Judgment Day. You're standing before the creator of heaven and earth. I promise you, if there is one day in your life that you're not going to tell a lie, It's going to be on that day. And you're standing before the most just and holy being you've ever encountered in your whole life, and you're saying to him, you're declaring to him, I've cast out demons in your name. I've done great and mighty works in your name. I've prophesied in your name. Basically what you're saying is, I thought all of that, I thought because your spirit was with me, that gave me a right to go into the city. But he says, no, that didn't give you right to come into the kingdom. That doesn't give you right to make it into heaven. What gives you the right is that little word, that iniquity. Most people think that, well, that's just a bad sin. That's a little bit worse sin, that iniquity. No, it's the Greek word anome. Anome meaning without Torah. So if we were to properly, or without the law, without Torah. So we could transpose them either way. So if we take that little word iniquity and we correctly translate it, what he said was, all of you people who have cast out demons in my name, all of you people who have prophesied in my name, all of you people who've done great and mighty works in my name, hey, I did all that. You didn't do any of that because I never knew you. You know why I didn't know you? Because you discarded my law. You didn't keep my commandments. If you love me, keep my commandments. So depart from me, you that have discarded the Torah, you that have done away with the law. That's what that scripture literally says. So when we start teaching that to people and they start seeing that, well, all that was done away with on the cross. Did you think Yeshua didn't know who he was? He knew what his purpose was from the day he was born. He was literally Yahweh manifest in the flesh. He knew what his purpose was. He knew what he had to do. Now he wrapped himself in flesh so he could feel the emotion, the pool of life, everything that we as human beings feel. He wrapped himself in that so he could feel those things, so he would be sympathetic to those things when he was judging us. But he, in that moment, this moment here, he's already accomplished it all. He's already hung up on a cross. He's already been in a tomb for 3 days and 3 nights. He's already rose again. He's already showed himself to the disciples. He's told Thomas, stick your fingers in my hands. Stick your hand in my side. All of that has already taken place. And now before he leaves, he's given his disciples one last instruction. He said, go out into the highways and the byways and compel them to come in. And then he goes on to say, hey, go out and make disciples of all men, baptizing them in my name. And then teach them to keep everything that I've commanded them. That's the Great Commission. So if we can go out and preach the gospel message, we can go out and preach, the gospel of peace. But if we're not preaching to turn away from sin and to be obedient to the commandments, then we are failing in the Great Commission. We're not doing what he told us to do, because pastors have same way husbands have advocated their roles in the house to their wives, and their wives are running their lives now. This is the same thing pastors have done in their congregations. They're afraid somebody's going to stop dropping $1 in an offering plate, so they forgot to teach about sin from behind the pulpit anymore. We have to stand up and tell this world that this world is going to die and go to a devil's hell, a hell that wasn't prepared for them because they chose sin over obedience. Sorry, I didn't mean to get all fired up here tonight, boys.
Oh no, that's good. I'm with you, man. Everyone doing sin also does anome or lawlessness, and sin is lawlessness. So everyone staying in him does not sin, but everyone sinning has neither seen him nor known him. So little children, let no one lead you astray, as many have, in the name of Messiah. The one doing righteousness is righteous, even as he is righteous. The one doing sin, he's of the devil. And the other witness here in 1 John is, for by this we know that we love the children of Elohim, when we love Elohim and shomar, or guard his mitzvahot, his commandments. For this is the love of Elohim, that we shomar, or guard his commandments. And guess what? His commandments are not heavy. And you can go to Deuteronomy 30 and back that up as well. So, I mean, it's right there. He's told us from the beginning. I mean, the commission didn't just start with Messiah. I don't believe, if we'll go back and look, is that, as Israel, we are to overcome this world, and we are to tell the greatness of the Creator and turn all the wicked hearts to the righteous one, the Creator of heaven and earth, and subdue this wicked world. That's what I put. Disciples are called to spiritually subdue the earth in the love and power and authority of Yeshua HaMashiach.
One of the commandments there, Chris, in the Torah, is that we teach these things to our children from generation to generation.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is literally a command that we teach the commandments. And here's the crazy thing that the church doesn't want you to know. Every time in history, if you go back through history and you look, every time in history that the governmental system isn't controlling the religious system, the natural aspect of those who have access to the Bible is Torah observance. That's their natural gravitation. They naturally gravitate towards being obedient to what Yahweh commanded. But this religious system has been so controlled by a governmental system, i.e. the Catholic Church, for 1,500, almost 2,000 years now, that it has formed the way that we think about Scripture. Think about when you first became born again, both of you. Probably you went to the pastor and said, hey, I've given my life to the Lord. Where do I start reading in this Bible? And most of them said, well, won't you start right here in John? Well, let me give you this Stephen King novel, and you start at page 785 of 1,240.
Or on book 6 of an 8-book series.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, you're totally lost. You don't have a clue what he's saying in John if you don't understand what he said in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
Absolutely.
That's the issue. And that's why we have apostate pastors standing behind pulpits doing exactly what the Messiah said that they would do. Okay? He said, that's right. He said of himself, he said in the last days that many will come in his name. They're not they're not claiming that they're the Messiah. They're coming in his name, saying that he is the Messiah. So they're not lying to you. They recognize his authority. They recognize that he is the Messiah. He said, but these same people that are coming in his name, saying that he is the Messiah, that those same people are going to deceive many. How are they? Because they're deceived themselves. Jeremiah 16:19 says, in the last days, the Gentiles would come unto him from the ends of the earth, saying, surely we've inherited lies and vanity and things wherein there is no profit from our forefathers. So our forefathers inherited lies. Now we've inherited lies, and those lies are being promulgated and passed on throughout our society, and we're teaching our children, or the next generation, a pack of lies, and we end up with Furbies, homosexuals, and transgenders. That's where it leads to.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I tied that up in a nice little bow, didn't I?
Bowed it up.
So, I when I'm talking about the law, of course, I'm absolutely passionate about it. And when we're talking about this Great Commission, those of us who have done evangelism, who have done missionary work, who have been out there in the highways and the byways, who've got knocked around a time or two, and maybe out there preaching your heart out, not knowing where your own next meal was coming from. Those of us that have done that and maybe are still doing that, we are going to be passionate about it, because this is about somebody's soul. I don't know what's more important in this life than somebody's soul. We talk about these children, and we can emotionally manipulate somebody by, the babies. I mean, that's the first thing that's the first manipulation tactic the news media will ever use. If they ever want you to get you to go along with something that's against your natural inclination, they'll say, "What about the babies?" So, so emotionally manipulating you. If we would, as men, start taking spiritual authority back over our homes, start walking in obedience to the mitzvahot, the commandments that Yahweh has declared for us to walk in, start claiming the authority back from the enemy that this world has taken from us, asking the Father to clear our minds of all of that garbage, we can effect a change in this world. I tell a story about this young man. He went to school every day, getting made fun of, carrying his Bible. Every day at lunch, he would go to his locker, kneel down, open his Bible, and pray. The short end of that story is basically this young man, before the year's out, led almost his whole school to salvation. One man, one young child, being obedient to God, can affect a change in thousands of thousands, in hundreds of thousands, if you'll just start being obedient. Don't ever allow the enemy to tell you that you're less than when you're greater than. Because once you become born again, you are created a new creation in Messiah Yeshua. I get so sick, I can do all things in Christ Jesus who strengthens me, except for keep the law.
Definitely.
Yeah, except for what he told me to do. I can do all things in Christ Jesus that strengthens me, except for what he told me to do. It makes no sense. It's a garbage teaching. Go ahead, Ryan. I know you got something.
No, you wrapped it up nicely.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick example from this week at work. I was talking to a young man, not on my shift, that just I kind of see in passing. One of the employees, and we just started talking about. I don't even know how we got on the topic. I like to slip things in there. We started talking about the Sabbath, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, keep the Sabbath. I know that's right." I said, "What day is the Sabbath, young man?" He goes, "Well, duh, Sunday." I said, "It is." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, man. It's when we go to church and you keep the Sabbath." And I go, "Okay." I said, "Well, that's day 7?" He goes, "It sure is." I said, "Well, let me pull out my little iPhone here because I think it begs to differ with you right quick." And I pulled it out and I said, "Well, what day is that? What day is it showing on the calendar?" And he goes, "Well, man, well, that's showing day 1." And I go, "Yeah, matter of fact, it is." I said, "The Sabbath, they call it Saturday." I said, but for somehow the teachings of Rome got really, really mixed into Protestant theology and just everyday living to think that the Sabbath day is actually the first day named after the sun, when in turn it's the 7th day, since that's the day that he rested and he set it apart. So it was just a good example of him. And I said, "Hey, look, we got to look at why we're believing what we believe. We're in a paradigm thinking that is antithetical, if you will, to what Scripture teaches, and we've got to break these patterns, and we've got to ask why. I mean, just every little thing that you're doing. Why do I believe what I believe? And like this whole venture of keeping the Torah and following the commandments of Father, it came from a prayer years ago that I asked him if I was one of these Pharisees, if I was teaching the doctrines and precepts of men and not teaching that which He's commanded me to. And in the response came not necessarily as an audible voice in my ear at that point, but absolutely, you're a Pharisee of Pharisees there, buddy. You're teaching the precepts of men. I was preaching against the Torah of the Most High, saying that we could eat whatever little cucaracha, porky, piggy, catfish, you just name it. I was saying it was good to go because, of course, it was nailed to the cross. So let's just shift our paradigm thinking, everybody out there. If you're getting mad at us and getting stirred up because you don't think we should keep the commandments, go and read them and see what they think and prove us wrong. Comment down below. Just go and prove the Torah and the fact that the Messiah did away with it and didn't keep it, especially without pulling into Paul's teaching, which are hard to understand.
We kind of, you mentioned some of the dietary laws. We kind of got into that discussion a little bit this week. And told a guy, I said, well, I raise dogs for a living. Maybe I'll start skinning them when you come over and fry you up one of them. he didn't
Hmm.
he didn't like that too
Yeah.
much.
No.
No, he can't eat no dog. So another guy's like, well, Peter had that vision of all them unclean things coming down on a blanket, and he was told to kill and eat. I said, okay,
Yeah.
well, so we keep mouse traps around the house. I'll just start saving all of them for you. Oh,
Exactly.
no, I don't want to eat those. So what you're saying is some things are still unclean, like a mouse and a dog, but a pig's not. Why is a pig not clean? And those things are clean. So everything else that Yahweh said was unclean, it's still unclean. But because Grandma got you addicted to that bacon first thing every morning, and that ham on Christmas and Easter, now magically that's all clean because Grandma couldn't have went to hell for feeding you pig.
Yeah, and we gotta go back to that old Easter ham and just go research why we're having that Easter ham on the 40th day of Lent.
Exactly.
But, that's just a whole nother teaching we can chase one day. But go look that up, people.
Yeah.
Why do we do what we do?
Go look up the real Easter story. I think I've done a few messages on that over the years.
See who she is, right? Go see who Easter really is.
Yeah, go see who Ishtarte is, Samareus. Go research that a little bit, and you'll go down a rabbit hole you don't want to go down if you still like eating that Easter ham.
Definitely not. And don't learn the ways of the heathen, right? Nor try to worship me in those ways. Of course, that's the Torah as well.
Yeah, well, Jeremiah 10 takes care of another one of their holidays. Jeremiah 10, just start reading there.
Okay.
Where it says, don't go into the woods and cut down a tree and come and bring it in your house and deck it with balls of gold and silver like the heathens do.
Yeah.
Not realizing that tree is, number one, a phallic symbol, supposedly representing the severed penis of Nimrod, and you're literally hanging the balls of gold and silver to represent his severed testicles back on the tree.
Yeah.
That's what a Christmas tree represents. But now you're going to bring that into your house, and you're going to say, "Oh, I'm not worshiping it." Well, tell me where you're at Christmas morning. Aren't you on your knees before it? Down on your knees before
Nimrod's
it.
Birthday. Don't forget.
Grabbing all the gifts that are coming out from under his severed penis.
Yep.
we
Wake
could
up, people.
We could go on and on and on and on and on.
We could.
But it's I don't want to explode your brain in
we
one
laugh.
session.
Honestly, that we laugh, but truly, it's not funny. I mean, this right here, all the things that we just named off are sins against our Father.
It is.
I mean, this is the reason that our Messiah went to the cross. This is the reason that we needed atonement, because we've gone so far astray in our minds and our thinking and the things that we hold as holy or the things of God, but they're just not. It's pure garbage. It's demonology. We've got to get back to the basis. We've got to start at the cornerstone, which is Messiah. But we've got to look at the foundation that was laid before, because he was saying that I am the cornerstone of that foundation that was laid from the beginning.
I know we kind of rabbit trailed there, but I feel like I want to just talk about that a little bit more. So I want you to realize that almost every major U.S. city has an obelisk in the center of it. There's a reason. Those obelisks are a representation of the severed penis of Nimrod. That's exactly what they're for. That city was dedicated. Almost every city has a pictures of them coming out there, cutting a ribbon, dedicating that city, and especially if they have an obelisk in that city, when that obelisk is finished, you'll see them out there with a ribbon, cutting that ribbon, dedicating that city to who? To Nimrod. That's who they're dedicating it to. The Washington Monument, severed penis of Nimrod. Go to any capital city of any country in the world, you'll see the severed penis of Nimrod. The uncircumcised severed penis of Nimrod. Okay? That's what they all are. They're uncircumcised penises from worship to a false god. Now, go to your Christian church and look what stands on the door as you walk in. What's placed on top of the roof as you walk into that door? So who is that place dedicated to? Is it dedicated to God or is it dedicated to Nimrod?
Nimrod.
Yep.
You know, and our unknowing sins we're still guilty for. So, I mean, now that you know, you better do some research.
Now that you know, you got to turn.
Now you're culpable.
Absolutely.
But you were culpable before. I mean, that's the thing. We're culpable. Our ignorance is not an excuse, especially in the Bible Belt of America. For crying out loud, everybody's got one in their house or on their phone.
Well, here's the thing. You're probably sitting there watching us on a phone in your hand or out on a laptop. Okay. Everything I've said here tonight, everything that Chris has said, everything that Ryan has said, it'll take you about 1.1 second to go do a Google search and see if what we've said is the truth or not. Okay? That's all it takes is a little research. So don't believe me. Don't believe Chris. Don't believe Ryan. Go to the Bible, believe God, and then do your own research. Okay? If you find that what we're telling you is the truth, then it's really simple. Just repent. Say, God, I've been following you in ignorance. I have believed a lie, but I don't want to be damned. Forgive me for living this lie, and help me to learn how to walk in your commandments. Help me to learn how to do those things that you've told us to do. Well, kind of full circle.
Well, and I'll just say, remember this. The Messiah is the root of our salvation. There's no salvation in any other name and any other person other than Yeshua Messiah, or so-called Jesus that the world says.
100%.
But the keeping of the commandments is the fruit of our salvation. Obedience is caused from the love that we have for our Father.
Well, I want to clear something up before you run into that roadblock, because as soon as you start telling people, well, I think I need to keep the commandments, they're going to say, oh, so you think you need to start sacrificing again? Okay, let me stop you right there, because that's a straw man argument, because clearly we're not supposed to be sacrificing right now. When Yeshua died on the cross, just what Chris just said, Yeshua is the cornerstone of our salvation. When he died on the cross, an earthquake happened. A fissure opened up, and it went straight through the temple, renting the veil between the holies and the holies of holies. No legitimate sacrifice has ever been offered since that day. Okay? And it will not be offered until the Messiah returns and restores all of those things. Okay? So for somebody to tell you, well, you can't keep the law because you can't keep the sacrificial system, that is a straw man argument trying to get you to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can keep the Sabbath. You can honor your father and mother. You can not covet your neighbor's wife. You can not commit adultery. Those are easy things. Let's start with the easy things. We'll get to the complicated things later. Understand, Yeshua didn't come to do away with the law. Matthew 5:17. Think not that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For I tell you, not until heaven and earth pass, would one jot or one tittle in any way pass away from the law. So if he said that the law wouldn't pass away until heaven and earth passed away, then I believe he is the truth, and every man is a liar. So if they're telling you the law is done away with, and he said it's not, I'll believe him over them anytime.
Well, I mean, just to finish that little scripture up, he says that whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called least in the kingdom of the heavens.
Absolutely.
But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of the heavens. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I heard from a teaching that Lee at Sukkot said that the Hebrew Matthew actually uses the word deleted from the kingdom instead of the least.
Yeah,
so
it absolutely is deleted from the kingdom. The same way,
Yes.
the same word it says in Revelations when it says he'll remove your name from the book of life.
Yes.
So you're
blotted
literally
out,
blotted out. It's like you never
you're not going to be a
existed.
street sweeper. Yeah, you're not polishing the gold streets,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, exactly right.
You're,
Even with your tongue.
You're deleted. That's right. Not even with your tongue.
Yeah,
exactly.
not even with your tongue.
And this is it. I mean, like you said earlier, what's more important, right? I mean, the Messiah said, what is it for a man to gain the entire world, but he loses his soul to hell? I mean, and this is the thing about it, men, women, men of Messiah right now that we are responsible for our neighbor. I mean, we can't go with the spirit of Cain that says we aren't our brother's keeper. If they're in your life, then you bear some sort of responsibility to them. And we've got to take that at heart. And we've got to get out of our comfort zone and open up dialogue and conversation, not to browbeat them and make them feel stupid for not keeping the commandments, but in love, talk to them and just try to break down the strongholds that the enemy has in their life, because that's exactly what it is. It's blinded, right? It says in Corinthians that the devil has blinded the minds of the unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel of Messiah, or that they've been so deluded in their thinking that the Father himself has given them a spirit of delusion. Let's help them. Let's help those who are blinded by the wicked one to come out of this and see the light of the gospel. How? In love, that we love one another, that we're willing to lay down our life, that we're willing to come underneath them and not rise above them, and show them what our Messiah is really like and what he really did and what his mission is through his people today, right now.
Well, even more so now, Chris, because he said in the last days that evil,
yes,
and corrupt things would be coming upon the world. Going back to the original part of tonight's message, talking about politics, talking about the world environment that we live in right now. This world environment, I mean, they are seriously trying to lie to us on every level. Okay.
Every level.
Last week, me and Ryan and you talked kind of about some stuff that may be going, around in the back scenes. The show we're being shown on the TV is not actually what's happening. That's just what they want us to believe. It's like the magician, and that's what's going on. Is the enemy is trying to lay these traps. There is this battle of good and evil going on right now. I think if the scales were truly pulled off of our eyes and we were able to see everything in the physical realm, forget about the spiritual realm. We couldn't handle the spiritual realm right now, because there is an absolute chaotic war going on for the souls of humanity at this point. And that is being manifest in secret right now in the physical realm, because whatever happens in the spiritual realm, it will be manifest in the physical realm as well. So we know that's
so that means we better step it up.
Absolutely right. Yep. Absolutely right. Because right now we are just being lied to. The magician has stepped on the stage and he's trying to lull you into the diversionary tactic. Here, look at my left hand while I'm doing something with my right. And that's exactly what's happening right now. I feel it in my bones that there is something going on behind the scenes we may not be fully aware of. In our lifetime, we may not ever be made fully aware of it. It might not come around to our children or our grandchildren's generation that the truth of what's going on right now finally comes out. But if you look at what's going on and can think that there is nothing sinister going on, you have been deluded. You are believing the lie, and you will be sucked away. I mean, you'll be swept away by every wind of doctrine, because I mean, if you believe a Chinese balloon can fly over into United States airspace and us not shoot that thing down in 1.1 seconds, you're an idiot. There's a reason that they're doing that. If you believe that Hunter Biden's laptop shows pictures of his dad whipping a 11-year-old girl while he and she is stark naked, got her tied up to a pole, whipping her. That video's on the internet. Go look it up. This truth is out there, and they just claimed that it was on Hunter Biden's laptop. They just claimed that website, that laptop. So if you can believe that this stuff is going on and you still think, oh, the government has my best interests at heart, you're deluding yourself. The only place you have to turn right now is to God. That's it. Because when we, the men and women of God, start confessing, if you could see my desk here right now, I have all these little sticky notes written and taped all over my monitors. And they're just blessings that I feel like whenever I feel like the Father is speaking a blessing over me, I get one of my sticky notes out and I write that thing down. Here's one. Every plan of the enemy will return unto his own head and not affect me. That's one of the things that the Father spoke to me. Every plan of the enemy is, I'm going to return it on his own head, and it's not going to affect you, James. So I wrote that thing down. So I can remind myself every day that Yahweh is fighting this battle for me. He's fighting this battle for you, Ryan. He's fighting this battle for you, Chris, and he's fighting this battle for our families. We have to start confessing those things. Don't allow the enemy to tell you that your finances are in the toilet. No. Tell the enemy, no, my Father owns the cattle of 1,000 hills. The wealth of the wicked is stored up for me because I'm walking in Yeshua's righteousness. That wealth is mine. It already belongs to me. You may be controlling the assets of it right now, but it belongs to me. Whatever gain you're getting from it right now, you're just working for me because you're my pawn. That money belongs to me. You start confessing that stuff over yourself because it's going to come to a reality. Maybe not in the not too distant future. Anything to say to that?
We need to be conquerors.
Absolutely.
Revelation 3:21. I mean, we're going to be victorious in this walk. I mean, we're Revelation 3:21. The one who conquers, I will grant him to sit down with me on my throne, as I also conquered and sat down with my Father on his throne. Now, if that don't perk you up, nothing does.
I mean, most of us are athletes. I know Chris played a little football. I think Ryan played a little football. I played a little football. I was in the military for the majority of my adult life. Well, I don't know if I can really say that anymore because now I'm getting a little older. So maybe I'm half and half now. So, but I was in the military for a minute, and that competitive nature. I am a conqueror. Not only am I a conqueror, I am more than a conqueror. Those things that he did, I'm going to do an even greater. Okay, yeah. If you caught 5 touchdown passes, I'm going to catch 10. If Yeshua raised 3 men from the dead, I want to raise 25. Because he said, these things that I do, you'll do an even greater. And you are more than a conqueror in Messiah Yeshua.
Messiah.
Yep.
So once we start realizing who we are and we start confessing those things over ourselves, instead of, you're so dumb, you're so stupid. That's the internal dialogue that we as men have with ourselves sometimes. You're such a failure. You're such a this, you're such a that. That's the devil talking to you. That's the enemy talking to you. And as soon as he starts confessing those things over you, you start saying right back to him. Give him the scripture. No, I am more than a conqueror. I have the faith of the grain of a mustard seed, and anything you confess over me, I'll pick that thing up and cast it into the sea. Because those are the promises that Yahweh made us. When the enemy can start making you confess that you're a loser, a failure, that you're weak, that you're this, that you're that, then he's got control. But when you start confessing the promises of Messiah over your life, you're blessed. And when you start walking in the commandments and confessing the right things over your life, he said, if you do what I command you to do, I'm going to bless you so much that the blessings are going to come up on you and overtake you. That means there's nothing you can do to get away with it, Chris. No matter how hard you try to run from the blessings, whether it's blessings in your health, blessings in your finances, blessings in your family, no matter what kind of blessing you're trying to get away from, if you're walking in the commandments, you can't get away from it because they're going to overwhelm you.
Mm-hmm.
Quit.
Deuteronomy 28:2. I was just fixing to read it. You beat me to it.
Go ahead, do it.
Well, Deuteronomy 28, and it shall be if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh, your Elohim, to shamar or guard to do all of his commandments, which I command you today, that Yahweh, your Elohim, shall set you high above all the nations of the earth, and all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you if you obey the voice of Yahweh, your Elohim. So, yeah, That's it. We got to obey the voice, keep his commandments, and like you said, know that we are more than conquerors in Messiah. Like
Well,
Ryan said, hey, we have come to conquer that which he's already conquered, but we've got to join in the conquering.
Right. Amen.
here's the funny thing about that. We just got done talking about the church lying to you and telling you don't have to keep the law and all that kind of stuff. But here's the biggest lie that we as believers believe. And even those who have come out of the Christian church, who are now trying to walk in the Torah, they still believe this lie, that you have to be poor to make it into the kingdom. They'll quote this scripture to themselves. Well, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven. Let me explain something to you. When we walked out of Egypt, we left with the wealth of Egypt.
We plundered them.
We had so much gold we were throwing it in fires and cows were popping out.
Yeah.
Listen, this Abraham, wealthy. Isaac, wealthy. Jacob, wealthy. In fact, every patriarch throughout Scripture, wealthy. Because Yahweh blessed them and blessed them so much that the blessings come upon them and overtook them. They had manservants, male servants. They had wives, they had animals, they had everything that they could possibly need. And not only did they provide for themselves, they were able to provide for everybody that the Father brought in their atmosphere. Daniel, in prison to Nebuchadnezzar, became the second wealthiest man in the whole world. His wealth was only rivaled by Nebuchadnezzar the king. Listen, if quit letting the devil tell you that you have to be poor. That's a lie. That's one of them lies you tell yourself. You're dumb, you're stupid, you're poor. Yeah, don't tell yourself those lies anymore. Start confessing I'm rich. Start confessing that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous, and I'm not walking in my own righteousness, I'm walking in Yeshua's. Quit being defeated. I don't know who needs to hear all that tonight, but you needed to hear it.
Somebody getting blessed tonight.
Absolutely. Because they're going to quit lying to themselves.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about this RV reevaluation and all that kind of stuff, and you know, me and Ryan will talk about it every once in a while, and it's great stuff, and I hope it happens, and I think it is going to happen, or I wouldn't be involved in it. But am I basing everything I do on that? No, not at all. Okay, I know that the wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous. You know why I know that? Because Yahweh told me that. And he said that Yeshua became sin. Okay, now I'm the one that committed sin. And we'll close up with this. But I'm the one that committed sin. Ryan, you're the one that committed sin. And Chris, you're the one that committed sin. But Yeshua, who knew no sin, who never committed a sin, he became sin so you could be reconciled to Yahweh through his righteousness. Okay? So if the wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous and you've been born again, created a new creation in Messiah Yeshua, who is the wealth of the wicked stored up for?
You.
Us.
And me and all of Israel. We are a chosen people, a chosen nation to be kings and priests over the rest of the world. Start acting like it. Start claiming that. Start confessing that over yourself. Start confessing that over your children, over your wives. We are not beat down. We are not poor. We are not servants to this world. We are servants to the Most High Elohim, the creator of heaven and earth. And who can come against him?
None.
Absolutely right.
And one last little word there. Zechariah, this is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says Yahweh Sebaot, or Yahweh of hosts.
100%. If we're truly, and we'll talk about this probably next week. if we're truly starting to transition from the age of Satan ruling and reigning in this world to the messianic age where Messiah, where his spirit will be ruling and reigning, you need to understand that the enemy is going to come with one last mighty fight. We better be mentally prepared to fight that battle, because I'll share this little story with you as we're burning rubber out of here. So 1989, 1990, when Iraq was firing up, the first one, Gulf War, I was at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and there was, everybody knew that that's where we were getting shipped to. As soon as we finished this training, we were getting on a plane, and that's where we were headed. So for weeks prior to the declaration of war, the war was declared on my birthday, January 16th, so I'll never forget it. I was at the PX and heard it come over the news, official declaration of war, and we had gone into war. The Gulf War had begun. Anyways, for 2 or 3 weeks before then, all of these people who were receiving some really, really stringent training because of the job that we were fixing to have to do. Okay, I don't want to go into any details there. But they were all mouthing around, I'm going to go kill some raghead, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, getting themselves mentally pumped up, which is what soldiers do. Well, I remember I had CQ duty that night. That war was declared. So I was down in the sergeant's office pulling CQ duty. And that night, almost every one of those people for the last 2 or 3 weeks that had been saying, I'm going to go kill some raghead, and I'm going to go get Haji, and all that macho talk, I had to keep 2 or 3 of them from committing suicide that night. Because although it was coming out of their mouth, they really hadn't mentally prepared. That whole time that they were making all of those claims, I was scared to death. And I would tell them, man, I'm scared. I've never been to war. I don't know. I'm just a young kid. I really don't know. I'm scared, but I'm going to do whatever I signed up to do. But I'm going to tell you, as soon as my feet hit that sand, a calmness came over me. From the crown of my head to the soles of my feet, I was so calm, still came in my eyes. I knew that I had a job to do, and that all that fear I'd had building up to that day just went away immediately, that fast. That's because Yahweh had been mentally preparing me. A lot of those guys that were talking all that tough talk, they mentally washed out before they ever got on a plane, because their minds couldn't handle it. Their minds snapped before they got on the plane. Right now, we're fixing to head into a battle, but the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but spiritual and mighty to the pulling down of strongholds. If you're not mentally preparing yourself, if you're not confessing those things that are not as though they were, if you're not confessing the promises of Elohim over your life, you're not going to stand in what's fixing to come on this world. You're not going to. It's impossible for you to, because the enemy has already laid traps. He's been laying traps for you from the day you were born. And he's about to spring them on you because you haven't been preparing yourself. You haven't been doing the work. It takes work. Chris, did you get them big old muscles by laying around eating bonbons?
No.
You had to do the work, didn't you?
Got to put the work in.
You got to put the work in. That's what we do. That's what we do. You got to do it mentally. You got to do it physically. We have to start working for the kingdom. Start confessing, over yourself, because the more God you put out into the universe, the more that you are affecting the kingdom of hell. But the more you think of the good things of God and you speak those things out of your mouth, the more damage you are doing to the kingdom of hell. Start confessing those things openly out of your mouth. Confess them over your wife. Confess them over your children. You are blessed. You are highly favored. You'll have the blessings of Leah. You'll have the blessings of Rachel. You'll have the blessings of Jacob. You'll have all of these blessings that the Father bestowed upon us as the children of Israel. We claim those things and we speak them into existence tonight. Over Ryan, over Chris, over myself, and over you if you're listening to this message. We speak those blessings to you. Start walking in them. Start claiming them because they belong to you. They were promised to you. Quit allowing the enemy to steal them from you. Yahweh bless you. Yahweh keep you. Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and grant you his peace. I love doing this on Sabbath. Tomorrow we're not having service because you can't get down the road. It's too icy out here in Oklahoma. So I just kind of use tonight as a little platform, I guess, to do kind of what I do over there as well. But Ryan, you got anything else to say? Chris, you got anything else to say before we burn rubber out of here?
Hallelujah.
Yep. Praise the Father.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it was my pleasure as always having you two guys as co-hosts on the Tents of Israel. Maybe in the future we'll get a few of these people who's watching to join us. We'll put them in a fourplex camera or something beside you guys and let them ask questions, and maybe us three start answering some questions online, that kind of stuff. However the Father wants to do it, but we want to involve all of Israel, not just us three. We want to start answering some of your questions and seeing if we can address some of those things from a biblical standpoint. But be blessed. We'll see you next time on the Tents of Israel. From me, Chris, and Ryan, we love you, but not as much as the Messiah does. But we still love you. And we'll see you next time at the Tents of Israel. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.